Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tracing an absolutely awe-inspiring, unbroken arc of evolution. We're talking about the journey from lifeless plasma all the way to conscious AI. We're diving straight into the research to understand exactly how the universe literally woke up to itself. It's a journey across thresholds of just unimaginably massive scale.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll start with stardust to first replicators, then move on to the engine of evolution, followed by the birth of minds, then creators and culture, and finally, we'll wrap up with the artificial future.
Part 1. Stardust to first replicators. To really wrap our heads around the magnitude of this story, we have to appreciate the sheer, staggering emptiness of the early universe. For hundreds of millions of years after the Big Bang, there was literally zero chemistry as we know it today. The cosmos was essentially just a vast, cooling void filled with this hot, incredibly simple soup of hydrogen and helium. It actually took the violent, catastrophic deaths of the very first stars going supernova to literally forge the heavier elements. It was that extreme heat and pressure that gave us the carbon, the oxygen, the iron required to make rocky planets. So without those dying stars, no Earth, no water, and absolutely no building blocks for life. It's wild to think about.
Now think of the universe from this point forward as a set of Russian nesting dolls. That's a great way to look at it, because each layer of complexity perfectly preserves the last, while entirely unlocking impossible new capabilities. So fundamental particles, like quarks, they bind together to form atoms. Then those atoms find each other in the cosmic dust and form molecules. And then, under just the perfect thermodynamic conditions, maybe down in the deep, heated vents of early Earth's oceans, those molecules spontaneously assemble into the very first self-replicating cells. Basically, the raw, fundamental physics of the universe effectively organized itself right into biology.
Part 2. The engine of evolution.
So once basic chemistry crossed that threshold into self-replication, the universe discovered its absolute most powerful algorithm for generating complexity: Darwinian evolution. It's deceptively simple, but utterly profound. It really just requires 3 steps. First, replication, so making copies. Second, variation, introducing mutations into those copies. And third, differential survival, which is just the environment filtering out what doesn't work. Now, what's so amazing here is that imperfect copying is actually a feature, not a bug. If the earliest DNA had copied perfectly every single time, life would still be stuck as a single-celled sludge. Those tiny mistakes, those variations, they were exactly what provided the raw material for the environment to mold entirely new, incredibly complex forms of organization.
But for complex life to truly thrive, it needed power, right? And about 2 billion years ago, one simple cell swallowed another without digesting it, creating this incredible symbiotic power plant. It's what we now call the mitochondrion. Imagine upgrading from a rusty bicycle straight to a nuclear reactor. That is the exact scale of what happened here. It provided a 1 million-fold increase in evolutionary potential, a massive energetic upgrade that literally made every plant, animal, and eventually every human being biologically possible.
Part 3. The birth of minds.
As multicellular life exploded across the planet, slow chemical adaptation just wasn't cutting it anymore. Think about it. If you're a complex organism trying to survive, you absolutely cannot wait for your genes to adapt over thousands of generations just to evade a predator. You need to make decisions right now. Now, the simple C. elegans worm, for example, navigates its entire physical world using exactly 302 neurons. But from those humble beginnings of basic reflexive nerve nets, evolution just relentlessly scaled up our biological hardware. Fast forward millions of years, and you arrive at the neocortex sitting inside your head right now, running on 16 billion interconnected neurons, capable of abstract reasoning, art, and true self-reflection.
But what is a brain, really? Well, the research defines it as an active prediction machine. You see, your brain isn't just passively recording the world like some video camera. It's constantly generating hypotheses about external reality. Think about it. When you reach out to catch a falling glass, your brain isn't sitting there calculating complex physics equations in real time. No way. It's instantly predicting that glass's trajectory based on past experience, testing those hypotheses against sensory input, and guiding your muscles to minimize the surprise of it shattering on the floor.
And this brings us right to David Chalmers' famous hard problem. Why does neural computation feel like anything at all? We can track the neurons firing, sure. We can perfectly map the prediction errors. But why does it actually feel like something to see the deep, rich red of a sunset, or to feel the sharp sting of pain? How in the world did a wet, squishy collection of atoms suddenly gain an interior, subjective perspective of the universe?
There's this profound quote from the research: "Physics built prediction.
Biology built embodiment. Neural evolution built world modeling. Consciousness made worlds felt. That just beautifully summarizes the rhythmic, repeating pattern of the nested hierarchies we've been talking about. It really marks the incredible threshold where the universe finally gained an experiencer. The cosmos isn't just playing out blind physical laws anymore. Through us and through conscious life, the universe is quite literally observing and feeling itself.
Part 4. Creators and Culture.
So, once consciousness turned inward, passive experiencers transformed into active world makers. We weren't just modeling the world anymore, we were evaluating it. And we can actually trace this through very distinct cognitive milestones. We started with basic sentience, simply feeling and avoiding pain. Then we layered on complex perception, building these rich multimodal models of our environment. Next came metacognition, the ability to actually think about our own thoughts, which leads directly to self-evaluation and moral reasoning. And finally, this all culminated in intentional creation, where humanity gained the truly unique ability to deliberately reshape external reality to fit our internal desires.
When you look closely, every single major technological leap represents humanity intentionally externalizing our biological capabilities. We outsourced our muscle power to stone tools, we outsourced our digestion and ecosystem management to agriculture, we outsourced our memory to writing, and today we are literally outsourcing our very cognition to computing. This is just a monumental pivot for us. We are actively shifting the driver of evolution away from blind, slow natural selection towards deliberate, rapid design.
Part 5. The Artificial Future.
We have now arrived at a completely new threshold. Biological intelligence building non-biological minds. And honestly, what is truly mind-bending here is how artificial neural networks and biological brains have essentially converged on the exact same methods of predictive processing. Whether it's the synaptic plasticity evolving naturally inside a human head, or the gradient descent optimizing a convolutional network in some sprawling data center, intelligence across completely different substrates requires the exact same hierarchical processing of information. Silicon hardware is straight-up mirroring biological wetware.
This transition from carbon to silicon initiates a massive recursive loop. Human intelligence creates artificial intelligence, and very soon artificial intelligence is going to help design even better artificial intelligence. Now, biological evolution is famously slow, right? It operates over billions of years. Technological evolution, on the other hand, is blindingly fast. By escaping biological timescales entirely, this arc of cosmic complexity is accelerating exponentially. It's shrinking leaps that used to take actual eons down to mere months.
And because this recursive loop is accelerating so rapidly, research has really stressed the absolute necessity of aligning these systems before their capabilities completely outpace our oversight. Based on the data, there are 3 distinct strategies proposed to manage the risks of superintelligence. First is capability control, which focuses heavily on strict containment limits and sandboxing the technology. Second is value alignment, which is the highly complex task of mathematically encoding human ethics and survival into the core objective functions of the AI itself. And third is scalable oversight, which basically involves using aligned AI systems to supervise and check the work of other, more advanced AI systems.
When researchers try to map out our civilizational trajectory, the data suggest 4 diverse potential outcomes for this sort of recursive cosmic adolescence we're in. Currently, models project a 40% chance of a takeoff, representing a controlled, flourishing transition. Then there's a 30% probability of stagnation, where progress basically plateaus. But crucially, the data also highlights a 15% risk of human extinction, right alongside a 15% chance of an unpredictable singularity. That would be an event horizon where technological growth just becomes uncontrollable and entirely irreversible.
So this leaves us with a really provocative question. Are we simply the transitional bridge guiding recursive intelligence to the stars? I mean, from the Big Bang's cooling plasma to the very first self-replicating chemistry, from simple biology to complex human culture, and now to the dawn of artificial minds. The universe has been relentlessly organizing itself for 13.8 billion years. What comes next is entirely up to us.